You're not welcome here. Go home.
That's what David, the son of the company's president, said to me when I attended the new employee welcome party with my mom. David thinks neither my mom nor I are suitable for the head office. We were caught off guard, and both of us were completely flustered.
This place isn't for someone at your level, and showing up to a welcome party with your mom at your age. Don't you feel embarrassed? Now, if your dad were at my level, it might be okay.
At your level?
My dad is the president here.
Remember this tomorrow.
Suddenly, my mom spoke up, startling David.
What?
The president's son, right? I'll remember that.
David continued to insult us in front of the new employees and kicked us out of the party. But he never expected my mom to throw a parting shot like that, and he was left wide-eyed in shock. He would understand the meaning of my mom's words the very next day, just as she said. My name is Michael Hill, 22 years old. My dad passed away from an illness right after I was born. When my mom, Laura, married my dad, her parents disapproved, so they eloped. After my dad died, she had no one to rely on and worked from dawn till dusk to raise me on her own. I vividly remember my mom being busy every morning, making breakfast while getting herself ready for the day. I used to stay in after school care, and my mom was always the last one to pick me up. Even after we got home, she continued doing side job. I wanted to talk to her more, but seeing how busy she was, I felt bad and kept quiet. I remember enduring the days when my shoes were too tight and my toes ached. I finished my notebook and needed a new one, but I couldn't bring myself to ask my mom. I knew she was working so hard for me. One day, a well-dressed couple stood outside our house, holding a box of cakes. As soon as they saw my mom and me, they started crying. They were my grandparents, whom I was meeting for the first time. They had heard about how my mom was raising me all by herself, so they came to see us. Even though I was just a kid, I tried not to get involved in the adults' conversation, but our house was small, so I could hear everything.
Come home with us. Let's raise Michael together. You've done so well on your own until now.
At my grandfather's words, my mom broke down in tears. She always smiled in front of me, but I guess she was holding a lot of loneliness and anxiety inside. My grandmother invited me to join them for cake, and we all ate together. It was my 10th birthday, and it was the first time I ever had cake with someone other than my mom. After that, we moved in with my grandparents. That means my mom's parents. Mom still worked, but not as much as she used to. Mornings began calmly with a good morning, and when I came home, I could talk about my day at school. It might be normal for other families, but I was so happy to have this time with my mom. I wore shoes and clothes that fit, and I had all the supplies I needed for school, so I started to enjoy studying. I'm filled with gratitude toward my grandparents for giving us this life. I want to repay my grandparents and my mom. That's why I approached job hunting with passion at every company I applied to. As a result, I received several job offers. Among them, I accepted the offer from Johnson Company, which was my first choice. When I was in my 3rd year of college, I worked various part-time jobs. I did everything from working at a karaoke bar, tutoring, to staffing events. It was a mix of experiences. Even though we had more financial stability after moving in with my grandparents, neither my mom nor I wanted to rely on it. My grandparents supported our mindset, providing us with what we needed, but being mindful not to buy us anything unnecessary or overly expensive. I worked not only to earn money, but also to gain different experiences before entering the workforce. I learned a lot about dealing with customers, coordinating with coworkers, and handling hierarchical relationships. I enjoyed working part-time, but I ended up getting fired from the karaoke bar under strange circumstances. That day, a group of guys around my age came in. They looked a bit rough around the edges. As usual, I explained the fees and showed them to the private room. A few hours later, they still hadn't come to the front desk, so I called their room. When there was no answer, I went to check on them in person. I found a hole in the wall, the sofa was torn, and food crumbs and drinks were scattered all over the floor. Hey, what happened here? At first, I thought they might have been arguing about something trivial, as groups of guys often do. But they were all singing together, so it didn't seem like that was the case.
What do you mean? What's wrong? We're just singing.
Oh, I see how it is. But there's no way just singing could have caused this kind of damage to the room. Excuse me, what happened to the wall and the sofa?
Oh, that. Well, I was pissed off at someone, and as I was singing, his face popped into my minds. So, I took it out on the room.
The leader of the group spoke with a smirk on his face. He didn't seem to feel guilty at all. It wasn't unusual to find food scattered on the floor. But this was the first time I'd ever seen the walls and sofa damaged like this.
So, what do you want? You're in the way.
I was just wondering what you plan to do about your time here.
Well, I guess we'll head out. Feeling much better now. Let's come back tomorrow.
The thought of them returning tomorrow and causing more damage worried me. So, I lowered my tone and decided to warn them. I'm going to call my supervisor. Please wait here.
Huh? Why?
I need to discuss the damages and your future use with my supervisor.
What do you mean by future use?
Even after hearing this, they just kept laughing, showing no sign of regret. It means you'll be banned from our bar. When I said that, the guys burst out laughing. I had no idea what they found so funny.
You're about my age, right? I'm 22.
Yes, I am.
And you're working a part-time job. How poor is your family? Are you from a single-parent household or something?
I am from a single mother household. Does that matter? I was furious at being looked down on by the leader of the group. The other guys were also smirking and laughing.
That's sad. Well, today's your last day. You're fired.
What? Why?
My dad's the president. Just go get your supervisor.
So I explained the situation to my supervisor, who took over dealing with them while I returned to the front desk. A few minutes later, my supervisor called me over and told me I was being fired. At first, I couldn't wrap my head around what he was saying. Apparently, the guy's father was indeed the president, and my supervisor's child worked at the same company as he did. Not wanting to cause trouble with the president's son, my supervisor decided to let me go. Understanding the situation, I quit the job without any fuss. I knew that as long as the bar was going along with those people, it wouldn't last long. Sure enough, the karaoke bar went out of business 6 months later, so I feel like my decision was justified. I can't understand how someone could think they can do whatever they want just because they're the president's son. I realize that I need to keep standing up to people, no matter who they are. That was a lesson I learned from the experience. This incident made me decide to quit all my part-time jobs. But to be honest, I was already thinking of quitting to focus more on my job search. My friends had told me how tough it was to land a job offer, so I decided to get serious about my job search. Fortunately, things started to go well, and today is the final interview for my top choice Johnson Company. I've made it to the final interview, so I really want this job. I'm going to bring everything I've learned and experienced to the table. Wearing the suit I bought with my part-time earnings, I feel ready to give it my all.
Hey, you?
Just as I was about to enter the restroom, I heard a voice from behind me. To my surprise, it was the leader from the karaoke bar.
So, you're here for the interview, huh? I'm David Taylor. And you are?
I'm Michael Hill. What's going on? David was talking to me as if nothing had happened.
Go ahead. I'll wait and go next.
He said this and let me use the restroom first. Could he be planning something? I couldn't figure out what he was thinking. But since he was being polite, I decided to go ahead and use the restroom. It won't open. What? I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. It seemed like something was blocking it from the outside. David, are you there? Please help. The door won't open.
Of course it won't. I locked you in there.
David confessed without hesitation that he had trapped me. Could it be that he's holding a grudge over what happened at the karaoke bar? Why are you doing this? Is this because of the incident out there before?
Obviously, I got you fired and was having a great time, but then that bar went out of business. You did something, didn't you?
I didn't do anything. I just think people don't want to go to a karaoke bar where the rooms are trashed.
So you're saying it's my fault the bar shut down?
David slammed his fist against the restroom door as he shouted the last part. I knew I had to stay calm because I wouldn't be able to make it to the interview unless he let me out of here. Please open the door. Let's talk this out.
I have nothing to say to you. Now that I know your name, I'll just tell them you left.
I heard David walking away from the restroom. What should I do? Stay calm, I told myself. That's right, I should call the company and let them know I'm trapped in the restroom. I quickly reached into my pocket but couldn't find my phone. Oh no, I left it in my bag. Sitting here feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to solve anything. Desperate, I decided to climb up and out of the restroom. Ouch. I managed to get out, but the back of my suit tore in the process. My hair was a mess too, but if I didn't hurry, I'd miss the interview. Even though I was worried about how I looked, I ran to the interview room as fast as I could. "I'm so sorry for being late." I immediately apologized as soon as I entered the room. Showing sincerity, that's what I learned from my part-time jobs.
Your suit's ripped. That's what happens when you wear something cheap.
David smirked as he looked down on me. I wanted to tell them that it was David's fault I was late, but without any proof, I decided to keep quiet for now. Ignoring David, I rushed to the interview reception, but my interview had already been canceled. I didn't cancel. Someone else must have done it, right? I said to the receptionist, just as David hurried over.
Looks like there was a misunderstanding. Don't cancel it. I'm the president's son, so it's fine, right?
The receptionist seemed a bit flustered, but was swayed by David's claim, so I was allowed to proceed with the interview. David didn't look too happy about it, but I was relieved that I could at least do the interview. To think that the company where David's father is the president turned out to be this one. That day was so exhausting, I can hardly remember anything else. Since then, I've received several job offers, including from my first choice Johnson Company. It's the company where David's father is the president. To be honest, I don't have a good impression of David. But I didn't want to base my future solely on my impression of David, so I decided to join Johnson Company. If I don't like dealing with David, I'll just find a way to handle it. It's as simple as that.
I'm glad you got the job offer, even though your suit was torn.
Yeah, I'm glad too. My hair was a mess that day, and I was late, so I didn't think I had a chance. I haven't told my mom about what David did that day. I thought about mentioning it, but I decided against it because my mom might be shocked to hear that the president's son did something like that.
Let's go to the new employee welcome party.
For some reason, I ended up attending the head office's new employee welcome party with my mom, and when I saw David there, I couldn't help but sigh. David will definitely have something to say when he finds out I came with my mom.
So, you actually got the job? How did you manage that?
He approached me, laughing through his nose. Seeing David, my mom seemed to catch on to something as well.
Nice to meet you. I'm Michael's mother.
Huh? Mother? Isn't today the company's new employee welcome party?
Yes, that's why I thought I'd join in and see what it's like.
Seriously, what's up with that? Bringing your mom along.
David found this hilarious and started laughing loudly. Even after he stopped, he kept laughing every time he looked at us.
Honestly, your mom had the nerve to show up. I mean, this is your kid's company welcome party, right? And it's at the main office of a major company. People from a single-parent household like yours aren't supposed to work here. Well, only elites who've had a proper education from childhood, like me, should work here. I still can't believe you got the job. Must be some kind of mistake, right?
To say all this in front of my mom, whom he's meeting for the first time. I couldn't believe someone who claims to be elite would talk like this. Even my mom was taken aback by David's remarks.
You don't belong here. Go home.
You have no right to say that to us.
This place isn't for people like you. And showing up with your mom at a welcome party at your age. Don't you feel embarrassed? Well, I'm here with my dad, though.
Why can't I do the same? David sneered and looked us up and down with disdain.
It's fine because my dad is the president.
But why? Your dad's the president, but you're just an employee, right? So aren't we in the same position?
You're wearing a cheap suit that could tear at any moment, and your mom looks like she's had a rough life. You're not on our level.
No matter what I said, David kept throwing his father's status as the president in my face. How can I make him understand that he's not the one who's truly important? As I sighed, my mom stepped in front of me.
You sure have a lot to say about both my son and me.
What's the matter, lady? Did it finally get to you when I talked about your precious son?
Her voice was calm, but I could tell from her expression and tone that she was angry. As her son, I knew she was really upset.
Remember this tomorrow.
What?
I'll remember that you're the president's son.
David's smirk faded, and his face tightened. He clearly didn't expect my mom to throw that parting shot.
What can you two possibly do?
Let's go.
But the welcome party.
Don't worry about the party. Come on, let's go.
I was concerned about leaving the welcome party, but I followed my mom and laughed. David watched us go, looking triumphant, as if he thought he had driven us away. The next day, I was called to the president's office.
So you're the one who had a problem with my son at the welcome party.
Yeah, and I didn't do anything wrong, but that lady kept coming at me along with her son.
David, standing close to his father, spoke in a sweet tone, his hand resting on the president's shoulder. It was obvious he was seeking his father's protection. The president didn't seem entirely opposed to the idea of helping his son.
You know, you're going to be working together from now on. What do you think about causing such a problem?
What do I think? I didn't do anything wrong.
I was going to forgive you if you apologized here. But bringing your mom to a welcome party, that's unheard of. Clearly, this is the result of poor parenting. I'd like to see what kind of parent he had.
Did someone call for me?
We all turned to see my mom standing there.
Laura, the chairperson.
What? Chairperson? This lady?
The president put a finger to his lips and made a zip gesture. Then, he quickly lowered his head repeatedly.
I had no idea he was your son. I'm terribly sorry for my foolish son.
Is she really the chairperson?
This company is family run, and her father was a great help to me.
The truth is, my mom's family runs a company and is quite wealthy. This company was supposed to be inherited by her spouse, and she had many suitors lined up. However, my mom fell in love with my dad instead. My grandparents couldn't accept my father as the heir, so my parents eloped. My mom, an only child who was raised with great care, decided to raise me well on her own and never intended to rely on my grandparents until they came to us. Even after we moved in with my grandparents, my mom was hesitant to work at my grandfather's company, but my grandfather wanted her to prioritize spending time with me, so she started working there. To everyone's surprise, she excelled at the job, quickly surpassing my grandfather. She could have taken the position of president, but after the elopement, there was no heir, so the president was chosen from among the employees, which is how David's father got the job. My mom wasn't interested in the title of president, So when my grandfather retired, she quickly became the chairperson. That's the mother I respect so much.
I have a few questions for you.
What is it?
How did you know we're a single-parent household? Where did you get that information?
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to look down on you for being from a single-parent household.
David seems to not want to talk about what happened at the karaoke bar and appears to be trying to change the subject. Even David didn't want his father to know about what happened at the karaoke bar.
I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking how you knew. Don't try to change the subject.
My mom's sharp tone froze the atmosphere. David, who seemed to think he could get away with changing the subject, was now at a loss for words. Seeing him silent, I decided to explain the situation. He came to the karaoke bar where I worked part-time. They punched holes in the walls and the sofa. When I called him out on it, he said his dad was the president and that he was going to get me fired.
David did that.
The president, who seemed unaware, asked with a pale face. My mom just looked at David with a disappointed expression. My supervisor didn't want to escalate things because his kid works at this company, so I got fired. The karaoke bar eventually went out of business. That's when he asked if I was working part-time because I was from a single-parent household, and I told him I was.
But I didn't know the chairperson's son was working a part-time job.
David desperately tried to defend himself, but of course, his words didn't resonate with my mom. I wanted to gain different experiences before starting my career, so I did various part-time jobs. Working at the karaoke bar was just one of them. I also didn't get an allowance, so yes, I wanted to earn some money.
What? Why didn't you get an allowance?
My grandparents provided for all my needs. My mom paid for my college, and I told my mom that I don't need an allowance because I can make extra money with my part-time job as a college student.
He's nothing like my son.
It's likely that David became so spoiled in part because of the president. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's been troubled by David's behavior over the years. He probably used his father's name to get out of trouble more than once.
After my husband passed away, we became a single-parent family. I made him feel lonely and hungry. If I were to disappear, my son would have to survive on his own. So, I raised him to be able to live in any situation, no matter what. Even after hearing all that, do you still look down on single-parent families?
No.
David fell silent, seemingly defeated by my mom's firm stance. Seeing him quiet, my mom continued with her questioning.
The day my son came home from his interview, his suit was torn. Do you know anything about that? Because yesterday you seemed to know his suit was torn.
Well, your son. He probably tore it because he was in an awkward position.
David mumbled, his voice barely audible as he tried to explain himself to my mom. He was sweating so much that his bangs were sticking to his forehead.
What do you mean by awkward position?
I locked him in the restroom and he had to climb out.
Why did you lock the restroom door?
After the karaoke bar went out of business, I thought it was because Michael might have said something, and I didn't want to work with him, so I tried to cancel his interview.
Before David could finish, the president dropped to his knees in apology.
I'm so sorry. I deeply apologize for what my foolish son has done.
Really, I'm so sorry. This will never happen again.
Both of them apologized, but it was too late for me and my mom. We had been hurt too much, and David had done too many wrongs.
I had so many things I wanted, but I was told I couldn't have them. Even though my dad always spent a lot of money, I had a set limit, and it stressed me out.
Everyone has their own stress, but that doesn't give you the right to break things or hurt people with your words, does it? We all have to endure our struggles in life.
I'm really sorry.
Tears welled up in David's eyes. The president, James, couldn't bring himself to say anything and looked down in embarrassment.
Speaking of money, James, I have a question. What's this amount of money listed here?
Oh, well,
I hope you're not pocketing this money, are you?
My mom pointed to a section of the document, pressing the president for answers. Earlier, it was David who was nervous, but now it was his father's turn to squirm.
it was to pay off debts. I'm so sorry.
Debts? What kind of debts?
For cars, watches. I have a habit of collecting things.
And that's really all it is?
Sweat started pouring down the president's face like a waterfall. No matter how much he wiped it, more kept coming, and the sound of him gulping nervously filled the room.
And gifts for women.
I suspected as much. Your wife came to me, worried that you might be cheating.
What? She knew all along.
Of course she did. Did you really think you could hide it? You've been neglecting your wife for a long time, haven't you? She told me to review the company's finances because of your reckless spending. And sure enough,
My mom let out a deep sigh. And it was no wonder. After all, it's shocking to think that someone in the position of president could embezzle company funds for personal gain.
you two are quite similar, aren't you? Never thinking about others, only about yourselves.
I'm sorry, I've said too much in the past. From now on, I'll do anything. Let's work together peacefully. I'll even take care of all the menial tasks.
Laura, me too. I'll do anything. Be your secretary, driver, whatever you need.
David clung to my leg, and the president clung to my mom's, neither of them letting go. But it was clear my mom had already made up her mind. She shook off the president's hands.
I was tempted to fire you both, but instead, I'm transferring you to branch offices. James, you will be sent to the Minnesota branch, and your son will go to the Mississippi branch. You'll both have to work hard in separate locations.
What? But I just got assigned to the main office. Working at the main office is what gives me status. Being in a branch office is lame. I don't want to go to Mississippi.
Minnesota. But I've lived in New York my whole life. Laura, I've dedicated myself to this company. Please don't say something so heartbreaking as to transfer me. I'll pay back the money. Please reconsider. I've worked so hard as the president.
My mom and I exchanged weary looks at their continued self-centeredness. You'd think they'd at least say something about helping each other out as father and son. They should be grateful they're not being fired, but instead, they're upset about being transferred. It was truly baffling.
What were you planning to do by calling my son into this room, James?
I just wanted to confirm some things.
You were trying to get me fired, weren't you?
No, I would never.
The president mumbled and eventually admitted he wanted to get me fired. It was clear he had been trying to do so at his son's request. You said, "We're going to be working together from now on." What do you think about causing such a problem, didn't you?
Yes, I did. But
I feel the same way. Given all the problems you two have caused, we can't work together right now. You'll work at the branch offices, and we'll decide whether to bring you back to the main office later. But there will definitely be a demotion.
what? That means my salary will decrease. How will I pay off my debts?
It was hard for me to understand why he didn't think of simply selling his car or watches to raise the money. But everyone has different values when it comes to money. And as long as the company gets its money back, that's all that really matters.
And David, you won't be able to say you're the president's son anymore.
How did it come to this? This is all your fault. You've hurt both me and my father.
What are you talking about? We were hurt by your words too. You should learn the difference between what's okay to say and what's not. It'll be better for you in the long run. Maybe people treated you well as a student, but out in the real world, not everyone is going to be so kind. David bit his lower lip, trembling. He probably wanted to say something back, but couldn't find the words.
Dad, do something. You've always helped me out before.
You know what kind of situation I'm in. I'm overwhelmed with my own problems. You're a grown man now. You've caused enough trouble, so it's time for you to start helping me.
But I don't know what to do.
As their argument escalated, my mom and I decided to leave the president's office.
Wait, Laura.
Enough.
A well-dressed woman entered the room.
It's been a while. You haven't changed.
Thank you for having me today, and thank you for reaching out.
This is my son, Michael. Michael, this is Iris, the president's wife.
I couldn't believe my mom had actually called the president's wife to witness this scene. Even though she's my mother, it was a bit terrifying. Naturally, both the president and David were suddenly cowering like frightened puppies.
James, Laura has told me everything. I want a divorce.
Divorce. But I'm only being transferred. How could you abandon me now?
That's not all, is it? I have evidence of your affairs.
With that, she showed the president photos and documents that must have come from a private investigator. It wasn't just one woman he had been involved with. There were several.
Well, this,
No excuses. I'll be demanding alimony as well.
Mom, I'm on your side. Dad's terrible for cheating, right? Don't worry. I'll be here for you.
David.
David desperately tried to cozy up to his mom, not wanting to be abandoned. Now that his father was no longer useful, he was trying to shift his allegiance to his mother. What a shameless guy.
Enough. I know you've been looking down on me. You're only siding with me now because Dad's out of the picture, and you think sticking with me will keep you comfortable. But I'm going to live on my own.
Mom, don't say that.
Grow up. Stop relying on your parents.
Both the president and David were in tears, terrified by the angry look on her face. It seemed they had finally realized they had angered the wrong person. My mom and I quietly slipped out of the room.
Let's get back to work.
Yeah, let's. And with that, we both returned to our respective jobs. James was officially transferred to the Minnesota branch as a manager, and David was sent to the Mississippi branch. Since James had lived in New York his entire life, he struggled to understand the local dialect at the Minnesota branch and ended up isolated in the office. With debt repayments and alimony to handle, he was further buried in debt and couldn't see a way out. When his debt would be paid off was uncertain. David's spoiled attitude didn't change, and people often asked him, "What are you talking about?"
I'm the president's son.
That phrase used to be his power move, but now that he can't use it anymore, the stress is getting to him, and there are rumors that he's even developed bald spots. Both James and David have been saying they want to return to the main office as soon as possible. But honestly, given the situation, it's hard to say when or if that will ever happen. As for Iris, after James tried to resist the divorce, it was finally finalized the day before he left for Minnesota. In the end, my mom had to step in to help with the divorce talks, and she convinced James to agree. Now, Iris is enjoying a peaceful life on her own. James rarely came home before, but when he did, he acted superior, and she spent her days apologizing for David's behavior. She says she's happier now than she's ever been. I thought that Iris might have been the biggest victim of those two. I just hope there will be fewer people hurt by those two from now on. As for me, I'm working at Johnson Company with the help of those around me, and I'm enjoying it every day. There are challenges, but I'm managing thanks to the experience I gained from my part-time jobs. I've asked my mom to keep it a secret that I'm the chairperson's son. I don't want to make others uncomfortable, and I need to remind myself that my success is due to my own efforts, not my mom's influence. I plan to keep working hard and living humbly from here on out.